Hello and welcome to Going for Twix, the number one Victory podcast. My name is Tom Dunson and joining me is my co-host and my good friend, the Jamie to my Malcolm, Mr. Adam Taylor.
Hello everyone. Hello.
How would you describe the thick of it to people who haven't seen it before?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple really, isn't it? It's just a look into the government.
Yeah, I mean that's basic what it is.
Except it takes an incredibly cynical and incredibly chaotic view.
I feel like any way you explain the thick of it in sort of official terms, like, oh, it's a satire about British politics and it's a bit like sitcom, it takes away from the very core of it, which is indiscriminate swearing.
Exactly.
Which I think everyone is a fan of.
Exactly. When you get down to it, it is just three people trying to come up with government policy in the back of a cab.
I feel like it has this kind of higher reputation of satire, just being really interesting satire, whilst it's just swearing. I think that's what everyone likes. Because swearing's funny, it just is.
Well, exactly. Everyone knows on your first watch through, Malcolm Tucker is your boy, isn't he? He's your favourite character. But I think it lends itself quite well to other watch throughs when you sort of realise maybe he's not always the main character or the best character.
I watched the first episode in 2012. So I watched it, series 4 was the first one I saw. And I was in year 8 then, so I just found the swearing hilarious. And then when you watch them, you get older, you understand what they're saying, basically.
I mean, my first contact was, I think it was like Malcolm Tucker meltdown compilation or something on YouTube. It's like every golden line coming out of his mouth.
It's really solid, did it?
Well, yeah. Then you got to find out, especially when, because I think the first time I watched it, he had just been announced as the Doctor.
Well,
So
I mean,
videos start popping up and stuff like the Doctor tells the Daleks to get out of the TARDIS. I had to see what's going on.
Speaking of Malcolm Tucker, we start this episode in the Department of Social Affairs. We start with who is the minister this time? It's Cliff, isn't it?
What says Cliff Lawton?
Cliff Lawton, yes. And he's walking up the stairs, and Terry tells him Malcolm's in. His face is just incredible in that moment. I don't know who the actor is, but it's brilliant.
It is, isn't it? I mean, that is the perfect introduction to Malcolm Tucker. We haven't even seen him yet.
Yeah. And he walks in, and he's really nice. He's really jovial and saying, "How you doing, mate? You all right?" Yeah. I'm so sorry about all this press. It's awful. I really like you. It's all fine. And then it changes on the one line. It's brilliant. It just goes, it's difficult, isn't it? I've never seen anything delivered with more Machiavellian malice.
Oh, the thing is, you know what's coming, don't you? In a post like Alistair Campbell era, when he's talking about press pressure and being hounded out, when's he going to go? When's he going to go? You know that Cliff's about to go. It's just how he's going to break the news.
Like Cliff should know he's about to go, because Malcolm doesn't usually do these kind of talks, and it's just when there happens to be a lot of press pressure, and he goes, "Nah, Malcolm loves me. It's my best mate. He wouldn't do this to me." I don't know why he's so surprised.
Yeah, because he sort of says, "Yeah, we both like you personally. It's not coming from us." And then Cliff specifically says, "Oh, that makes me feel a lot more secure."
It's ridiculous.
but it's so good how they do it. And then obviously you've got him actually being sacked. He's like, hey, I've written some very nice things about you, and the PM's reply to your resignation letter.
That is Tucker all over. He wants you to be grateful that he's sacking you. How dare you? I was really nice when I shat over your career.
But then that's sort of the weirdest bit towards the end of this scene where Malcolm says, "Look, nobody who matters thinks any less of you because of this."
It's just all procedural. We don't actually think any worse of you. It does make sense to me, but I feel that only makes sense because Malcolm made it make sense to me.
Yeah, well, there you go. And that's why he is, as Cliff puts it, the PM's enforcer.
That's his description all over. It is quite sort of dodgy, bit sort of Nazi-esque, calling him an enforcer.
I know, it is a bit go to your house and drag your family out to watch you get executed.
Yeah,
but, I mean...
Again, that might be just a description of Malcolm.
Yeah.
So after that, we have Cliff turfed out of DOSA, as it was named back then, and in the main characters, Ollie, Glenn, and the Right Honourable Hugh Abbott. What do you think of Hugh? Because the series changes direction and tone a lot. What do you think Hugh at the start?
I think they tried when they bring Hugh in initially. I think they just basically tried to have him as like the bog standard generic cutout of a minister.
I mean, he's a very genetic minister. I've got to agree.
It's in my bones. He's like early 50s, sort of a career man,
middle class.
He's sort of trying to make a difference.
Yeah, kind of wants to make a bit of a difference, but only so we can go up in politics. It's not so we can actually make a difference to the world. I'm sure he's a good guy in some respects, but at the end of the day, he is very career-minded.
Yeah, do you think as soon as Malcolm gives him a line, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You toe the party line. And I think he was probably one of the most malleable people in that respect in the series. And that, he will just do whatever Malcolm tells him to do. Rightly or wrongly, which causes the chaos in this episode.
Yeah, we'll get onto that in a minute. But I think we've got to move on to his two advisors. We'll start with we'll go on to your favorite later, but we'll start with Ollie.
Ollie Reader.
I really like Ollie, but just he is an arsehole, but he's a likable arsehole. Because Chris Addison, who plays him brilliantly, is a very funny guy, he's a very likable guy, and he sort of plays Ollie as likable. But the thing Ollie doesn't say, if your friend said that to you, you chin him, basically.
Yeah, he's not a nice guy, is he?
No.
I mean,
if you say Hugh is career-minded, Ollie is ruthless. He wants to get up the ladder no matter what. He doesn't give a shit.
but he hasn't got that same sort of like self-assuredness. He seems to me like he's almost second-guessing himself. He hasn't quite got the guts to go ahead with it.
I think Hugh's definitely got more of a plan.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want it all. I don't really know what I want. He doesn't know what it is yet, but he wants it.
Yeah, absolutely. He just seems to sort of, I don't know, just sort of trip into things.
He's very ambitious. He's energetic.
Yeah, but he just turns into, he's just an arsehole all the time.
Yeah, I think crucially he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll move on to your favorite character. I haven't really got the same love affair with Glenn as you do, so I think you better.
Your boy,
description.
Glenn Cullen. I mean, I think Glenn represents as close as you can in this series. Just I feel like you have the same kind of gut reactions as Glenn. Like you want your party to do well, but then you just sort of can't help but realize sometimes the absurdity of the situation. And I think he's the only one that sort of shows any sort of humanity throughout the whole thing.
I think he's definitely got sympathetic qualities. He's always putting forward the best policies, in my opinion, to like help people. He doesn't obviously want to help people, but he's an insatiable arse licker. Starting with Hugh, and later on in the series, he moves on to Nicola Murray, who replaces Hugh, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. He's always like, oh, Hugh, he's my best mate, Hugh. You always like you, Hugh. Even when Hugh shafts him, he goes, oh, I love you, Hugh. It's all good.
No, I mean, no, I understand where you're coming from. I would say he's not always like that. You know when Hugh shafts the super schools.
Yeah.
He uses Glenn's son as an example.
I think that's this crowning moment, really. But
yeah.
Personally, I bet you've got some. I couldn't name any funny Glenn lines off the top of my head. That he kind of goes down in estimations from there.
I mean,
if you can't either, that proves my point.
No, we will get to them. Glenn,
right.
Glenn Cullen's got a special place in my heart, that man.
We might have a little tally go along of good Glenn lines. We'll see if you got a point about Glenn being the best character.
Beautiful Glenn moments.
There's one more character we left out we shouldn't have, and that is Head of Communications, Terry Coverley.
The blockage herself.
Yeah.
Terry Coverley.
Right. I think Terry gets a hard ride in this series. I think she's really good in this series.
Do you know what? In this episode, watching it back, I mean, she's the only one that's in the right the whole time.
Yeah. In later series, they'll just they cast her, which is an utter buffoon who can't do her job at all.
Yeah, but then whenever crises emerge, she's got the headset on.
Yeah.
She's in at like 2 a.m.
Coverley comms.
Yeah.
But she gets a really hard ride. She's a really good civil servant. She does her job well, and they're always asking for her. They always say, "Can you get Terry to do this?" And then they just blame her when it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Justice for Terry. Let's get that trending. Hashtag justice for Terry.
Hashtag justice for Terry.
So the main thrust of this episode is what's it called? Scuba Squad.
Snooper Squad.
Snooper Squad, not Scuba Squad. That's for ice cream.
No, that almost sounds like sort of five teenagers and their dog in a van.
Yeah, you're right about that. So Hugh asked the Prime Minister about, was it investigating benefit fraud or something like that?
Yeah, it's like it's a uniformed team to crack down on fraud.
The exact words that the Prime Minister uses is, this is exactly the sort of thing we should be doing. And that seems pretty clear to me, doesn't it? You do that.
I know, we should do this.
Yeah.
As Glenn says.
If you said to me, do you want to go get a pint? I said, that's exactly the sort of thing we should be doing. You wouldn't go, I guess I'll stay in tonight then.
No, that would be pub time.
Exactly. But then, as they're on the way to make the announcement, Malcolm, this is a very Machiavellian.
Machiavellian, I like that, yeah.
Or even Orwellian kind of thing, where he changes what the language means, so it means no. I think this is a really shit idea from Malcolm. Because he only knows what Hughes told him, which is the Prime Minister said the exact sort of thing we should be doing. Which should doesn't always mean yes, but it doesn't always mean no, and he just assumes it means no. It's like, Prime Minister said no. But he said should, that means no. I have no idea what he's doing in this episode.
I know, he just sort of goes for it, doesn't he? He just sort of shuts it down for the sake of shutting it down.
I've got a theory that Armando Iannucci, the man who writes the thick of it, decided to write Malcolm purposely as being shit at his job to have a go at Alistair Darling.
Alistair Campbell.
That's the one I meant, yeah.
Poor old Alistair Darling. Him and his eyebrows have been through enough.
I was going to cut this. No,
do you know what? I can see that. I mean, we've seen sort of like the ruthless side of Malcolm.
I think he was definitely going for a more political satire thing. in this.
Yeah, because you sort of got to the meat of it where, it's all about policy now, and they're flip-flopping on not what's right for the country, but what's going to look the best.
Yeah.
And how
that is a theme that goes through the whole series, whereas I feel like, specifically in this one, they make it more of a satire. In later ones, they just go for, we need to make it as funny as possible. I don't care how satirical it is.
And I mean, in fact, even later on in the episode, you have someone point out how ridiculous this whole day has been. And then you have Malcolm shut that down like nobody's business.
Well, we'll move on to that now, because when they decide not to announce the Snoop Squad, Malcolm tells them that they in fact did announce.
Talk about living in a post-truth world. Like, it's in their best interest to pretend that you said it.
It is brilliant.
Yeah.
And it makes absolute sense.
And I think it shows the kind of power that the director of communications can wield. I mean, the minister didn't say it, the journalist didn't hear it, and yet it's going to be reported on as fact.
I really like that fact. I like to think that's how politics gets done in our country, just because it's levels of shithousery that you can only admire, really.
It's particularly relevant now. This sort of relationship between the director of communications, journalists, editors. Again, they sort of touch on that later.
Yeah, it develops much further during the series. I really like to think of the guy on the other end of the phone getting rung up by Hugh Abbott to say, we did announce it. Because to be fair, when Hugh's telling people that he did announce it, he's not saying, I actually did announce it. He's saying, it wasn't really an invention of a civil servant. Someone made that up.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, to get rid of it, they write it off as an invention of a disgruntled civil servant.
Yeah.
And then to get rid of that, they say that was an invention of a disgruntled civil servant. There is only one disgruntled civil servant. The other is an invention.
Speaking of that, when they're coming up with a name for this disgruntled civil servant when it's not on, which name do they pick?
Derek.
Terry.
Not Derek. Terry. Oh,
Terry.
Yeah, okay.
Terry's getting the short end of the stick, all of it. Short end of the stick, short end of the wedge. One of those. The right side of the car. I don't know, I'll make up a new one.
Nicely done.
Thank you. It's smooth.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It doesn't go Terry's way this time, does it?
When does it ever go Terry's way? She's doing a really good job. She's doing a fucking job, and they're just not appreciating it.
Bread and butter work. Belt and braces work.
I think there's one more detail that we should hit upon, which I think is interesting going back and watching the first episode.
Yeah.
Which is Angela Heaney.
Yes.
She's built up she's an ex-girlfriend of Ollie's. They obviously have a fraught relationship, and she's built up as a massive thing in this episode that never sort of comes to fruition. This is about as dramatic as it gets between the two of them, but it feels like watching this episode, there's going to be a lot more of that.
I know they sort of set her up as the journalist foil to the civil servants. She's the one that they've got the contact. She's the one that will sort of stand up to them and say how ridiculous this is. You sort of expect her to pop up as the journalist. This is sort of the most that she's in it.
It feels like there's going to be some kind of interaction with her and Ollie, but just never appears. I thought it was really weird. Kind of feels like through the thick of it, they come up with ideas and then they change them at the last minute, or they change them in following series, and it's a bit inconsistent, but obviously it's funny as it goes along. The story is not always as tight as it could have been.
I remember sort of hearing around from places that maybe the improv has something to do with it, because I think quite a bit of it is improv.
Yeah.
But I mean, there must be some sort of, there is an overarching story for it. So I don't know whether they sort of know what they want to do and then just let the scenes take them away.
I assume that the stories have within series. They'll plan a storyline or whatever within a series. Because there's one in this one, because we start getting early about Hugh's driver, who will come back in another episode. But it's not really between series to do much, because it does feel like Angela's going to come back in another series, if not in this series. But she's sort of B-list character this series onwards.
Yeah, they sort of relegate her, like you say, to the B-list. But then, her sort of changing papers does cause drama in the future.
In any episode of The Thick of It, there are the same aspects that make the show such a classic. In this section of the podcast, we will dissect them with their own segments and awards. In every episode of The Thick of It, there are lines that can only be uttered by Mr. Malcolm F. Tucker. And in this segment, we'll look over the Tuckerisms of the episode. Which Tuckerisms have you got?
Okay, all right, well, when it comes to Tuckerisms, what do we mean? Do we mean just cavalcades of swearing, or just the most menacing?
Just a thing you can't imagine anyone but Malcolm saying.
When Cliff is getting sacked.
A lot of them then.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them then, but just the raw, menacing power when he calls him Cliff for the first time. And Cliff goes, that's Minister. He goes, yeah, well, get used to Cliff.
I mean, that's pretty good.
I mean, that's brilliant. Yeah. You can only imagine Malcolm Tucker saying that.
He's witty in the most disgusting arsehole way.
I know, it's just horrible, isn't it? Yeah, well, get used to Cliff. I mean, following on from that, you no longer have purchase in the sarcasm way.
Yeah, I had that one as well.
That's such a brilliant...
That's a brilliant one. See what I've got. He's as useless as a marzipan dildo.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, oh my God, yeah.
The first line Malcolm says in the whole thing.
This is useless as marzipan dildo.
It's brilliant. I've booked you in for the soapy tit wank farewell. I don't even know what that means.
I know. I mean, what does that mean? You just want to be seen going into number 10 and then coming out again? I mean, he doesn't mean it literally, surely.
I don't think so.
Otherwise, there have been some very interesting relationships with the cabinets.
I can't think what he's trying to mean by it. I presume he means sort of pleasant and the PM pretends to be sad or something like that. I don't associate any of things with soapy tit wank.
Well, I bet you associate a couple of other things with it.
It's a family podcast. Right?
Wholesome, yeah, not on my Christian, the Thick of It podcast.
I've also got, I'll should you right through that window.
Oh, don't should me, Hugh. I'll should you right back. I'll should you right through that window.
Because it just means, it's so aggressive and yet it means nothing.
Oh my God, because you believe it as well.
Yeah.
You will take him through that window.
I don't want him to should me anywhere.
Yeah, please, Daddy Malcolm, no more shit.
Don't say that. I'd like to assure listeners that this is a Thick of It podcast and not some weird fetish one, okay?
I want to say the most Malcolm thing, I think.
Yeah.
We had the get used to clip. I think right at the end, when Angela Heaney threatens to do the day of spin. Because why shouldn't I do this? The government department out of control. The ministers not knowing what they're doing. Malcolm swans in to save Ollie from the embarrassment.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe she should do it. Oh no. No, I know why she shouldn't. Because she'd be dead. To me, to this department, to this government. She'd never get a story again. A whiff of the story. While her hack bitch face hangs around Westminster. I'd call every editor I know, and obviously that's all of them. Tell them to gouge their name out of their address books. I think that's perfect. I think that sums up how Armando Iannucci wanted this director of communications.
Can I just say how creepy you were while you were giving that recount of the speech?
Could you believe it?
Yeah, especially considering you had your hands on my shoulder and staring into my eyes. What I love about that scene is the Columbo turn he does.
Oh, I know why she shouldn't.
Just one more thing.
Oh, yeah, what a moment.
I must have improvised that because that's such a it's exactly like Columbo did it. It's brilliant. I love it.
That's where we see where he's getting his inspiration from.
So Armando Iannucci, writer of the Thick of It, had previously written one of the greatest British sitcoms and your cultural hero, I'd imagine, being from Norfolk, Mr. Alan Partridge.
We have two malls. One of them features a mural of stuff from Norfolk, and the biggest picture is Alan Partridge. And I'm pretty sure we're getting a statue to him soon.
Yeah,
I remember reading that somewhere. Norwich, UNESCO City of Literature. You're welcome, world.
Norwich, the city of Alan Partridge and incest. And as a result of Mr. Iannucci's presence with Alan Partridge, a lot of Alan Partridge moments have sifted through to the thick of it. So, Alan, have you got any Alan Partridge moments?
Right, well, the most Alan Partridge moment I had in this is the whole sort of subplot with the driver.
Yeah,
I mean, just as the car pulls up and Hugh turns to Glenn, he goes, I want a new driver. Smirking. Unnecessary smirking. He doesn't like me. That whole thing's brilliant, isn't it?
It's pretty fucking good, yeah.
Just, how Alan Partridge do you like? I don't like my driver. Well, he's smirking. He didn't look at me right.
One of the ones I've got is when Ollie and Angela are having dinner and he says, full stop.
I think I'll do the punctuation on this one, Ollie.
I can imagine Alan Partridge dictating it to every little degree.
Absolutely. Yeah, new paragraph. Yeah.
Personally, this is what I've got as the most Alan Partridge moment.
Go for it.
Is Hugh Abbott going up to the little huddle of Ollie, Glenn, and Terry and saying, "Is everything all right?" You just hear Glenn go, "You can't."
That's right. Yeah, we have the C bomb. I couldn't remember that being in the series.
They start the way they want to go on. They want to say, "Yes, this is about story." They have to get it right. You have to get the message in people's minds right away.
Oh, I mean, absolutely, yeah. And then you see Hugh run off and sort of stand halfway through the door. Ask Mark, I think they might need a bit of coordination. They're all fucking tearing into each other.
I also have a slightly smaller moment, but I think it's really weird but really funny. When Hugh and Glenn return from the press conference, there wasn't a press conference. They're about to walk into Hugh's office with Ollie, and Glenn just shuts the door in his face. Yeah. And Ollie doesn't think to open the door. Does he understand how? I don't know if he doesn't understand how doors work or something, but surely you just open it. It shows that Glenn thinks you're a bit of a dick or whatever. But just open it.
Oxbridge in it, they just don't understand.
Well, maybe it's Oxbridge politeness.
Oh yeah, all the Oxbridge pleasantries. Yeah, maybe, because then they repeat that, don't they? Then he shuts Terry out, and Hugh shuts him out.
I can understand Glenn not going in, because you don't go into a room with Malcolm after you shut a door.
Oh, yeah, well, you wouldn't want to, would you?
Yeah, it's a good point. One of the crux of the thick of it is bullying. Not that Malcolm's bully, I'd never say that, because he's threatening to kick the shit out of me if I do. Exactly,
he's a lot worse. Nothing like our current Home Secretary at all.
It's funny you should say that. So now So now we will be giving away the Pretty Patel Award for biggest bullying moments.
Oh well, I mean, it's gonna have to be Malcolm, isn't it?
Which part of Malcolm? Just overall?
Well, I mean, it's gonna be Malcolm in a lot of episodes, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
probably.
I think for bullying in this episode, I think I'd have to go with when he convinces Hugh to change his mind. Should.
I mean, that is pretty bad.
The bullying that's okay in the context of government.
It is a bit like sort of psychological torture to try and make him change his mind.
Exactly. Also, almost like gaslighting, isn't it? Should.
Yeah.
That doesn't
It is
mean
very
yes.
much. Yes, it is the definition of gaslighting, isn't it?
That doesn't mean yes. That means no.
I've gone for. I thought you'd go for a Malcolm moment, so I tried to find.
Oh, you switched it up. Oh, he's only gone and switched it up.
I tried to get a moment that's so cool you probably never heard of it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
I've gone for getting Ollie to get in contact with Angela to give her the story. The ex who broke his heart by email. That's not on.
They even get it wrong, don't they? By text. It wasn't a text. It was an email.
That's just not on. You wouldn't do that to someone you liked.
I know, you wouldn't do that to your mate, would you?
You just surely there's loads of reporters at the Spectator. Why has it got to be here? Because Glenn just wanted to play a joke on Ollie or something.
Want to see him
Hate him.
suffer.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's what I've gone for because I just think that's probably not all right, is it?
I mean, no, I think that's a good moment. I think Pretty Patel would absolutely make someone do that.
Yeah.
And I think she wouldn't really understand why it's inappropriate or not okay. So, yeah, no, I think,
You've got a really view of Pretty Patel, haven't you?
oh, I mean, she's got to be the only member of the cabinet in, recent history for being sacked for meeting with members of a foreign government and then not telling anyone.
That was ages ago, mate.
That was ages ago. Yeah, let's put her in charge of the police. And, MI5, MI6,
Hey,
whichever one's the home
This
one.
is a Thick of It podcast, not a politics one, all right? Sorry, wrong for that.
Oh,
One of the things that makes up the Thick of It is the meltdowns. So now we will give out the Chernobyl Award for best meltdown.
the Chernobyl Award for Best Meltdown. I mean, to be fair, there are a couple. I think I'd give it
Yeah.
to Cliff this time, just because, he gets sacked and he goes from pounding the table, oh, I feel so much better, to, I know what fucking transport entails,
Yeah, to be fair.
so quickly. So I think I would say give him the Meltdown Award.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for others, I mean, Hugh at the end, well, that was a fucking disaster.
Yeah, you'd have to give it to Cliff, wouldn't you?
I think Cliff's got the better one there. I think he's going to take it.
I think if any person who gets annoyed by the phrases buses, trains,
Yeah.
should probably get best meltdown.
Yeah. You want me to write my own obituary? Get on the fucking phone. Yeah. I think Cliff's got his meltdown down.
Right, I have two names for this award. One of them I feel might be libelous. So I'll do that one. If that doesn't work, I'll do the other one.
Is it libelous to call Pretty Patel bully? Because, I mean, an official inquiry
What's
found that
she going
wasn't.
to do? Going for a Twix podcast, call me a bully. Ugh.
Well, I don't know. She's in charge of the police. I mean, she'll deport people with no reason. I
Pretty
mean,
Patel, if you're watching, listening, fucking bring it on, all right?
Pretty Patel, if you are listening, obviously the English member of the podcast actually quite likes you. I'll do anything for a laugh.
I,
the
Adam
Welsh
Taylor, say that I don't give a shit what everything now. Bring it on, sue me, beat me up. I don't care. I'm indestructible.
Listen to that accent. Doesn't sound like a man who was born in Norwich. I mean, it might. I don't know.
You're blown by disguise. In any episode of Thick of It, there's always an innocuous mistake that leads to a complete fuck up. So now we'll give out the O.J. Simpson Award for who's to blame.
I haven't heard these names before, and
Yeah.
I think Tom's done quite well. And if we cut one of them out, I do feel very sorry for the listeners. So the blame award. Well, I mean, Malcolm.
Yeah, I've
really,
got Malcolm as well.
for this episode. He sort of arbitrarily decided to shut down the snooper squad.
I was looking back. I was trying to work out what he did. I felt like it's because he'd have to talk to the Treasury, and he just thought I couldn't be fucked. So I'm going to get Hugh to change things. He says, I'm going to go back to one of my Tuckerisms. I'm going to have to mop up a hurricane of piss.
Yeah. Well, you say they think you don't even CC them in an email. They think you started a palace coup.
I just don't understand why he assumed that he knows better than the PM.
Again, do you know what? I think that's Armando Iannucci trying to tell you something about the likes of Alistair Campbell.
Yeah.
So I think they know better than a lot of people. I guess you could try maybe the Prime Minister if you were trying to sort of point the finger somewhere else. I'm going to do a Stephen Crowder and play devil's advocate. At least at this point, it's not basic human rights that are at stake. But, the Prime Minister, he doesn't really sort of let people know what's going on. I mean, he is in Sweden, can they say? And he just sort of wants to sharp the Treasury by announcing it on the news.
I don't really think that's on him, because he said to Hugh, we should be doing this, and then he did it. I don't think he's been inconsistent. If anything, you could have a go at him for not informing everyone at the same rate or enough.
I think that would be the only thing you could sort of get him for. Maybe sort of playing it a bit hardball, keeping his options open. Yes, this is the thing that we should be doing. Sort of like plausible deniability. But it is Malcolm who, at the end of the day, causes the crisis.
Yeah.
that results in the episode kind of have to solve.
That was Going for a Twix. Join us next time when we discover the dangers of focus groups.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to share it with friends, loved ones, fellow swearing enthusiasts, and strangers. And until next time, fuckity bye.
That was Going for a Twix. Join us next time where we discover the horrors of focus groups.
Ooh.
That's fucking stupid.
Feel free to fade it out before then.
I'm keeping this all in.